Hi, my name's Toby Mountjoy, and this is The Autism Show. Today, we're going to look at a very, very important topic. We're going to be talking all about the causes of autism. We've been seeing rapidly increasing numbers of children being diagnosed with autism all over the world. And this has led to many, many researchers, parents, and people all over the planet asking the question, what's the cause? Why are we seeing so many more children with autism? And what in particular is the cause of this disorder, the fastest growing developmental disability in the world? So today we're going to investigate this a little bit and look at some different points of view on this issue. So probably the biggest one that we should discuss is the vaccine, the MMR vaccine in particular.
Mercury is toxic to the human brain, and neurological problems have been caused by mercury, and mercury should not be in vaccines. My grandson got 9 shots in one day, 7 of which had mercury in it, and he became autistic in a very short period of time.
In 1998, a doctor by the name of Dr. Wakefield published a study in The Lancet, which is a very, very renowned and very respected journal in the UK. And in this article, it stated that with a group of 12 children, he claimed that he showed that the MMR vaccine had caused autism in these children. This launched 1 million headlines across the planet in all different newspapers, and there was a mass panic among parents of young children to worry about whether they should be vaccinating their children anymore. Many parents decided not to vaccinate their children, believing that the vaccine was the cause of autism. It was believed that the thimerosal, which is an agent that's used inside the vaccines, was the cause of the disorder. It was later found that the study was fraudulent, and it was withdrawn from the journal. It was seen that actually he had provided false data in the study, and that he had a patent for another kind of vaccine, a single dose vaccine, that if he had found his findings to be true, he would have made a lot of money from the other treatment that he had been patenting. He later lost his license as a doctor in the UK and was banned from practicing, and since has moved to the United States. Obviously, since that journal was launched into the Lancet, and with the public outcry around the vaccination issue, many studies were launched in many different countries. You looked into this issue of vaccines and autism. And so now many studies have been done, look with thousands and thousands of individuals all over the world, and have shown that vaccines do not cause autism. Some of the underlying facts, like the thimerosal, which was thought to be the agent that caused autism, those were removed from those vaccines in the United States in 2001. We would be expecting to see a dramatic decrease in the rate of diagnosis in the United States since 2001, but that certainly has not been the case, as you saw from my earlier graph. One of the things we see in the vaccine issue, we talk about causation and correlation. And what happens with young children is obviously parents are going to notice the autism as they approach a very similar age that children get vaccinated. Some of the most common things parents notice, like the child has not yet started to speak, happen around the ages of around 2. Some of the symptoms may not be so easy to spot pre-2 for some parents. So as those children are around that age, it's often quite noticeable to the parents. And again, it's at the same time the vaccine occurs. So it's quite easy perhaps to, what's changed in our lives? Well, we had the vaccine recently, where it may actually have been that the child was already exhibiting some of those symptoms, or it's just at the same time the parents were starting to notice. And you see this a little bit in some of the other theories of autism, where we see maybe a plotted graph to show an increase in something. That could be the increases of how many people now exercise around the world, or it might be in terms of how much sugar do people eat. There's many things that may have had a similar kind of graph of prevalence, and it matches what is happening with autism. So you look at those two graphs and you think, because we've been eating so much sugar, maybe that's the reason why autism is occurring. But we have to be very, very careful, because just because those things are happening at the same rates, that does not imply any kind of causation for the two things, i.e. that eating more sugar causes autism, or that having more autism in our planet means that people eat more sugar. You really need to investigate really the relationships between those two things to really draw any conclusions. But people are often quick to jump to conclusions because maybe that seems plausible or it seems like something that we may want to believe, but we have to be very, very careful. So let's look at some of the other theories that you can find out there about what the cause of autism is.
Research suggests that omega-3 rich foods, such as fish and eggs, may play an important role in fighting infections during pregnancy, which could have otherwise increased the risk of autism. Now, I'd like to point out that some people do believe that mercury, which can also be found in fish, can also increase the risk of autism. An increasing amount of evidence points to vitamin D deficiency during pregnancy being linked with autism spectrum disorders.
I find diet really interesting. I must say I'm a diet fiend. I must have done so many different diets in my life because I'm fascinated by it. I find it incredible that still today, after so much research into food science, that people still argue about what is a good thing for people to eat. Should we be eating less carbohydrates, more protein, whole plant food diets, less oil? There's a lot of debate in there. You can listen to a lot of doctors on podcasts discussing this issue. So it's no surprise that, there's been a lot of information out there about different kinds of diets that you do for children with autism, with many people believing that perhaps autism is caused by the diet we eat. They talk about the leaky gut, where maybe some of the things in the diet cross over into the blood of the children or go to the brain and cause a lot of problems. It's very important for children with autism to eat a healthy diet, just as it is for any child. We know that we need our sort of energy levels to stay alert and responsive during the day. And perhaps if we eat too many foods that are not very good for us, it may affect our sort of general energy levels across the day. But we do know that there is no conclusive scientific evidence right now at all that suggests what we eat causes autism. There is nothing that we've seen in any journals at this point that really conclude that. However, you will read and understand a lot of information out there on the internet that may purport that to be the case.
Thallium's been banned in the United States for a long time. It was used in rodent bait for the longest time in this country. I believe it's also still present around cement factories. And it's just one of those odd heavy metals that we haven't heard much about, but it is associated with autism.
With all of these things, they seemingly seem very plausible. I think if you're a parent and you're just embarking on the journey of autism and you're reading about these or listening to this kind of thing, and he's a doctor, maybe the reason why my son has a problem. It also leads to then thinking about, well, what's the treatment? I mean, if you believe that heavy metals cause autism, you might embark upon a program of chelation, detoxification, which could be quite dangerous. And in fact, one boy died through the processes of having a chelation which was badly administered many years ago. So we have to be very careful, and the FDA has not approved a lot of chelation methods for children with autism. We have to be very careful about where this kind of is going to lead us on our journey to help the children.
That wireless radiation interferes with the calcium channels. They stay open too long, too much calcium gets into the cell, and then essentially causes inflammation. He also believes that it's not just wireless, that again, this is a total load, and Martha Herbert believes this too. But that chemical exposures can also lead to inflammatory conditions and overactivation of the brain. And so these things all working together, this genetic component of de novo mutation, the wireless radiation, calcium channel and inflammatory conditions, and then chemicals as a whole, are really causing this inflammatory overload, the state of overload. Okay. Now, that's really interesting, because I've never heard anyone state a really coherent theory of autism like that really explains the majority of the issue.
Again, I'm sure if we look at the graphs of like how much electricity is around us every day these days, with all of the phones that we use, the computers, the internet, it is everywhere all around us. But again, I haven't seen any scientific evidence that supports that this is the cause of autism, although seemingly kind of plausible. So what is it then? If it's not these things, and there's many, many more reasons you can probably find on the internet, ranging from the more plausible to the more sort of like very outlandish. So what is the cause of autism? And what is the reason why we're seeing so many children being diagnosed every day? Here's one opinion.
We don't know everything that causes autism. However, the place where we've made the greatest inroads to understanding this has been in the area of genetics.
It seems that there definitely is some kind of genetic component to this. We know that you have identical twins. If one of those twins has autism, there is a higher chance that the other one will also have autism. They come from the same DNA, and they also share a very similar environment, being brought up in the same house by the same parents, etc. However, it doesn't explain all of it, because also you can have identical twins that one child has autism and one does not. So it doesn't explain everything. We're always looking at the world of nature versus nurture. What are those things that have been handed down to us by our parents, our DNA? And what are the things that affect us, in the environment? Right now, the evidence probably suggests that this is a neurological disorder and that it's also affected greatly by our environment. I hope that as we continue our journey into researching and looking at all of the possible aspects of the causes of autism, we maybe one day may find an answer. But for now, we're not really sure. Thank you very much for listening to the show today. And next week, we'll be talking more about the reasons for the increase in the prevalence of autism around the world. So I hope you can join me next week. Thank you very much for listening.